One of our subscribers asked, could you do a quick tip on the best way to save mixed paint? I'm forever trying to remix and match the paint in my paintings. Yeah, that one keeps popping up. Let's turn it on its head. If you want to know how to save paint that's already mixed on the palette, go to Quick Tip 172. I go through the whole thing there, as well as explain other questions or answer other questions. But for this one, why worry about remixing the same color if you know how to do it? Now, I want to walk you through some steps that I've discovered will enable me to always mix the same color every single time. It's about how you think about color, not about trial and error, where you're just reaching here and here and there to get the color that you had to begin with. But if you learn how to think about the color, how color works, you can mix any color you want at any time. So I want to guide you through these little steps and show you what I'm talking about here. So what do we know about color? What does color do? Well, color has three characteristics that all work together at the same time. One of those characteristics is what we see around the edge of the color wheel. It's called hue. And what do we know about what can hue do? It can only do two things. It can change to another hue, or let's say hue can actually do two things as hue. It can change to another hue, or it can get darker or lighter. As hue, those are the only two things that it can do. So the hue of this particular blue, for example, that is a middle value blue. And you might say, well, that's simplistic. Well, if you recognize the hue of that blue belongs right here, it can go a little lighter or much lighter. It can go as light as you want it to just by adding a little bit of a lighter color to it. In this case, I'm adding white. Or it can go darker just by adding a little dark. In this case, I'm adding a darker blue. So that hue of blue has now moved in value. Now, the hue of blue can do something else. It can move towards, the hue of blue can move a little bit more towards green, or it can move a little bit more towards red. And in that case, what you would look for, if you're working with the color blue, identify what kind of blue is it. Is it a blue that moves a little bit more towards red or violet, or is it a blue that moves a little bit towards green? That way you have identified the hue that you're working with. If the blue moves just a little bit more towards red, then you would add just a little bit of red. And so we will add just a tiny bit of red to this blue. Let's get it the same value, this particular blue. Just by adding a little bit of red to that blue, this blue right here, now we have moved it a little bit more towards red. If we add more red, we move it more towards red. And we can also get that darker or get that lighter. If we move it less red, then we will move more in this direction right here, more towards blue. So the blue could also not just lean towards red, but it could also lean towards green. So we take that same blue. Now see, that's how you identify what that hue, that color is doing. Is it moving towards another color that's beside it? So if that particular blue is moving towards green, then we would add just a little bit of either yellow or another green to it, and here we would have it moving a little bit more towards green. And then if moving less towards green, of course, then there would be more blue and less green, and we would have something kind of like that. So then that however to whatever degree it's leaning towards green, can get lighter and can get darker. So identifying the value, what value area is it in, exactly what hue is it. Is it a hue that is sitting right on top of the hue you know to be blue or yellow or orange or whatever, or is it leaning towards its neighbor? But there's one more thing that color can do. Not only can it lean more towards its neighbor, not only can it get darker or lighter, but it can get more neutral. Now, we know that if we look at the color wheel, and if this is the blue we're working with, we see that blue, the complement of that blue is orange. And so we would reach for an orange. Now, if we wanted it more neutral, we'd reach for orange. If we wanted more neutral of the same hue or the same value of that hue, we would stick to that hue and reach it for a little bit more orange of that same value. And I'm using an orange here, and then we get it. Oh, that's way more neutral. Let's get it a little less neutral than that. Here we go. There we go. It's now less neutral. That is saturation. So if this is the blue you're working with and you want to remix it, if you know you've identified the values in the middle value range, you've identified the hue of blue, you've identified that it needs to be more neutral, that means adding a little more orange. You see, if you think it through like that for every color you mix, then you can always come back and mix whatever color you're looking for. Now the reverse of that is being able to look at a color and see what's in it. So if you're looking at a green leaf, for example, that's that the light is shining on, identify, is it green? Is it the green that registers as green, or is it green that leans a little bit more towards yellow? Or is it a green that leans a little bit more towards blue? That tells you what to do with the green. Is it a green that is darker, or is it a green that is lighter? That tells you what you would need to do. If it's a yellow-green that's darker, then that tells you need a darker yellow-green. If it's a blue or green that's dark, you see where I'm going with that. Or if it's a green that's more neutral, if it looks more olive than it does green or yellow-green, then you'll know that you'll need to add a little bit of its complement. So it's just a very simple matter of realizing that color is made up of 3 parts. And each one of those parts is a part of what makes that color the color that you're looking at. So when you identify those parts of color, and then you learn to ask those questions, which way is it leaning? Hue, in this direction, value, light to dark, saturation, fully saturated to more neutral. So when you want to mix a color that you're looking at, you have the color mixed, then if you've identified those 3 parts of color, you can always come up with that color again, and you don't have to worry about trial and error, or what am I going to do to get this color that I have here. You can always get the color you want. Be sure to view all of our quick tips, and while you're doing so, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell, so you'll always get a notice when we produce a new quick tip, which is every week. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments section and we'll make a quick tip for you. Also, take a trip over to DianneMize.com, where I have full-length lessons, downloads, DVDs, lots of other stuff there, some free stuff for you. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you'll always be informed every time we do something new.